Episode 140, Faithful Love. A bit frightened, Mrs. Cox cursed. "Why the hell did you laugh? Here's the evidence. Don't try to deny it." Jake snatched the phone and looked at the officer who was clearly the supervisor of the others. "Officer, I have enough evidence that shows that she has followed me and infringed upon my privacy, portrait, and reputation. Mrs. Cox's behavior clearly constitutes as libel." Mrs. Cox was dumbstruck. Her face pale, she exclaimed, "What rubbish are you cooking?" He did not pay attention to her and gave the cell phone to the officer. The officer looked at him and then played the video. "Officer, don't listen to his crap. This is the evidence that he has imprisoned my daughter. Look at his lips. He admitted keeping my daughter here himself." "So did you find her?" Serena asked softly. She glanced at Mrs. Cox sarcastically. "You have to stop making things up at some point." Mrs. Cox was rendered speechless, staring at her with bloodshot eyes. If the police were not present, Serena had no doubt that Mrs. Cox would slap her in the face. Seeing Mrs. Cox's look, she gloated inwardly and said, "You're not only wasting your time, but also wasting the taxpayers' money by calling the police. Since we are neighbors, if you apologize to my husband, we will not sue you." Jake heard that and smiled at his wife. She felt on top of the world. However, when she saw Mrs. Cox's miserable look, she felt she had become a bad person. She had started to collude with Jake on this plan of keeping Lila away from her family. Horrible. At some point, she was affected by his villain side. If they were in a movie, they would definitely be the negative characters. Mrs. Cox was livid as she yelled, "You home-wrecking, downgraded woman! You want me to apologize? Go to hell! Give my daughter back!" "I'm just trying to resolve things. Why did you curse like that? That is horrible," Serena whispered, shrinking back behind Jake, looking like she was scared. "Both of you, come to the police station with us, please," the officer said to Michael Cox, glancing at Jake and Serena. "They are right about your evidence being an infringement to others' privacy, portrait, and reputation, and indeed, we failed to find your daughter here. Your evidence is not strong enough." "Lips! Read his lips! Officer, look at that! He admitted it himself!" cried Mrs. Cox. "If you need to say something, you can say it after you come to the station with us." The policeman was a bit impatient. He then looked at Serena and Jake. "You two should also come." Serena was a bit nervous. She had never been to a police station before. Did she have to go? Sensing her nerves, Jake gave her a pat on the back of her hand and said, "Officer, we would love to cooperate. However, my wife is faint-hearted. I will ask my lawyer to talk to you." The police officer looked at her and nodded. "As soon as possible." Michael Cox had remained silent the whole time. As he got into the police car, he was gazing towards Jake. Seeing Jake nodding to himself calmly, Michael Cox had a bad feeling. It seemed Jake had more traps for him. Seeing the police car had gone far, Serena held Jake's hand excitedly. "Did you plan the whole thing? You are so good." Jake chuckled and took her arm. "Let's go." "Where?" "Grandpa's birthday is close. We should get him a present." She blinked. Grandpa's 70th birthday was half a month after the winter solstice. It was less than 10 days, and she had completely forgotten about it. What should we get him? In her last lifetime, Jake had bought Grandpa a rare jade pendant carved with a pine tree and a parrot, symbolizing longevity and virtues. When Grandpa received the gift, he had been very happy, while she had given Grandpa an expensive designer suit, for which Lila and everyone else had shamed her for. Although Grandpa had not said anything, Serena could tell that he had not been fond of the gift. Much later, she had learned Grandpa's preferences. As a proud, true blue American military man, Grandpa was very patriotic and never really liked anything ultra-expensive. It didn't match his tastes. Jake squeezed her face. "What are you thinking?" Serena shook her head. Thinking of her last lifetime, she couldn't help feeling a bit upset. He drove the car out and took her to a mall. The mall was not too crowded. Everyone shopping there was well dressed. He went to the top floor by elevator and walked to a store selling jade. Seeing him, the owner walked up and called him. "Mr. Robinson, is my order ready?" "Yes, we made it according to your design. Here it is." The owner crouched down and took a box out of a safe. The box was locked, and the owner used a key to unlock it. Serena immediately saw what was inside. The jade pendant, indeed. The owner took the jade pendant out carefully, afraid that it would be scratched. The jade was of an emerald green and very transparent. What was rarer was that it was almost without flaws. The pendant was as large as half of a palm. The texture was so good that it felt you could squeeze water out of it. A pine tree was carved on the pendant, the leaves of which were represented by the natural green part of the jade. On the branch, there was a lovely green parrot, with a natural drop of red as its eye. The work was very well done. Below the pine tree, there was a lake and a ginseng tree, a symbol of longevity. It was a perfect birthday gift for an old man. The gift was very rare and very expensive. Jake was satisfied. "Could you wrap it up for me?" "Of course." The owner was thrilled and carefully wrapped it up before giving it to him. He swiped his card and found Serena looking at a pair of swans. They were not made of jade, but 18-karat gold. The lines of the swans were very smooth, decorated with diamonds and jade, looking perfect under the light. "Do you like it?" He leaned closer and looked at it. Shrewd at his job, the owner quickly took the swans out and said, "They are a swan couple. Swans are the symbol of fealty. For its whole life, a swan would only have one partner until death. If one of the couple dies, the other one would live alone." Serena heard this, and her eyes watered up. What a sad but beautiful thought.